Demon Slayer made $667 million globally on a $20 million budget. Brad Pitt's F1 movie cost $300 million to make the same amount. One required 15 times less money than the other. Both had similar global audiences. One is Hollywood, one is anime. And for the first time in entertainment history, animation from Japan just beat live-action blockbusters at their own game, in their own market, using an entirely different economic model. And Hollywood has no idea how to compete. Most people watching this don't even know the war is already over. In this video, we'll uncover exactly how Japanese animation conquered America, why Gen Z chose anime over Marvel and DC despite Hollywood spending billions to keep them. What business model lets anime keep 15 times more profit than Tom Cruise? How a stream service dedicated entirely to anime is about to generate more profit than Spider-Man. And the most important question, what happens to Hollywood when anime controls 1/6 of the entire US box office and won't give it back? Before I break down why this shift terrifies every studio executive in Los Angeles, drop a comment and tell me, are you part of the anime boom, or are you still watching Hollywood blockbusters? And if you think this shift matters to the future of cinema, smash like, because Hollywood studios have spent millions trying to keep this analysis from reaching people. Also, hit subscribe right now, because whether Hollywood finds a comeback or anime keeps winning, we'll be right here with our popcorn, breaking down every twist in the story as it happens. I'll report on it and analyze every move and make sure you never miss the real reason behind who's winning your screen. The box office takeover nobody saw coming. Let me start with what actually happened in fall of 2025, because the numbers are absolutely insane. Demon Slayer Infinity Castle opened with a $70 million opening weekend in September, becoming the highest-grossing anime film ever in the US. It's earned $131 million domestically and $667 million globally. That's more than Superman, more than the How to Train Your Dragon remake, more than most Hollywood tentpoles. 3 weeks later, Chainsaw Man Rise Arc opened at number 1 with $18 million and eventually earned $33 million domestically. Together, these two anime films generated $168 million in the US during just 2 months. That represents approximately 1/6 of the total domestic box office during that period. The only Hollywood film that outperformed them was The Conjuring Last Rites at $177 million. Paul DeGarbedian, ComScore's senior media analyst, said something that should terrify every Hollywood executive. Could you envision how dreadful post-summer box office would have been without Crunchyroll? It's fair to assert that anime is no longer just alternative content, it is an expanding segment of a transforming theatrical market. Read that again. Anime isn't alternative content anymore, it's mainstream theatrical content that's propping up the entire box office when Hollywood fails to deliver. But that's where it gets interesting. And this is the problem Hollywood literally cannot solve. The economics are completely different. And once you understand this, you'll see why Hollywood's business model is actually broken. Let me show you. Demon Slayer cost $20 million to produce. Brad Pitt's F1 cost $300 million. That's a 15 times budget difference. Both made approximately $630 to $640 million globally. Demon Slayer achieved a 29.5 times budget multiplier. F1 achieved a 2.1 times multiplier. That's not a difference, that's a chasm. Put that in perspective, and this is crucial. A typical $300 million Hollywood film needs to earn at least $428 million just to break even after marketing and theater cuts. Everything below that is a loss. Demon Slayer broke even at roughly $60 million, and everything after that was pure profit. Hollywood needs $500 million just to justify making a film. Anime needs 1/10 of that and achieves the same global revenue. Let me say that again because it's so important. Hollywood needs $500 million in box office revenue. Anime needs $50 million. Same audience, same money, completely different economics. And this pattern repeats across every anime release. The Boy and the Heron cost $50 million and made $282 million globally. That's a 5.6 times multiplier. IQ, The Dumpster Battle, earned $100 million worldwide. My Hero Academia, Your Next, generated $32 million globally. Every single release proved audience will show up for well-executed stories, regardless of whether they cost $20 million or $200 million to produce. It's not about budget, it's about storytelling. It's about connecting with your audience on a genuine level instead of connecting with spreadsheets. Here's the core difference that Hollywood executives refuse to acknowledge. The average successful Hollywood blockbuster achieves a 2 to 3 time budget multiplier. That means $100 million films need to make $200 to $300 million just to be considered successful. Anime consistently achieves 5 to 15 times multipliers. The numbers don't lie. That's not a competitive advantage. That's a structural market shift that Hollywood cannot reverse without completely restructuring how they make films. But theatrical is just the surface. What's happening on streaming is even more dramatic. And this is where anime's advantage becomes unstoppable. And this is where it gets scary for Netflix and every other streaming service. Netflix reported over 1 billion anime views in 2024 alone. More than half of all Netflix subscribers now regularly watch anime. But here's the shocking part that nobody's talking about. Shows that ended years ago are outperforming new releases. Naruto, a series that concluded over a decade ago, is generating millions of views per week in 2025. Detective Conan, another legacy series, consistently outperforms new Hollywood releases on Netflix. This never happens with live-action content. Catalog titles die. They disappear. Streaming services have to constantly churn out new content to maintain engagement. But anime catalog titles compound. They grow. They generate value years after release. This is creating what industry analysts call resilient fandoms. Communities that maintain engagement between seasons, even through year-long gaps between releases. TikTok is dominated by anime music videos, character edits, and cosplay content. Discord servers maintain daily engagement with episode discussions and community theories. Viewers rewatch entire series years after release. When audiences voluntarily watch your content that many times, you're not just making content, you're creating cultural touchstones that compound in value. That's the anime advantage. Meanwhile, Crunchyroll has grown from 5 million subscribers in August 2021 to over 17 million in 2025. That's faster growth than Netflix achieved during the same period. Not close, faster. And here's what should genuinely alarm Hollywood executives. Crunchyroll's subscription revenue now accounts for approximately 15% of Sony Pictures' total revenue. 15%. But Sony executives project something even more shocking. Within 2 years, Crunchyroll will generate 40% of Sony Pictures' operating profit. Let me repeat that because it's almost impossible to believe. A streaming service dedicated entirely to anime will generate 40% of Sony's total operating profit. More than Spider-Man. More than their entire theatrical slate. More than everything else Sony produces combined. This is happening right now. This isn't a future prediction. This is already locked in. Here's the demographic reality that explains everything. 42% of Gen Z watches anime on a weekly basis. More than once a week. Regular, consistent viewing. For comparison, only 25% of Gen Z watches the NFL weekly. Anime has surpassed America's most popular sport among young viewers. Among anime fans, specifically 65% of Gen Z considers anime their primary entertainment choice. Not just content they watch sometimes. Their first choice. Their priority. When they sit down to be entertained, they choose anime. Now here's where it gets really interesting because understanding this is understanding why anime will continue to dominate. What makes anime fundamentally different from Hollywood content is how fandoms operate and how they sustain themselves over time. Anime creates resilient fandoms, communities that maintain engagement between seasons, even through long gaps. TikTok is absolutely dominated by anime content, music videos, character edits, cosplay, fan theories, ship debates. Anime is everywhere on social media. Discord servers maintain daily engagement. Discussions happen between episodes, between seasons, sometimes years between releases. Unlike Hollywood properties that experience sharp drop-offs between films, anime franchises maintain constant engagement. Naruto saw 28% viewership growth in 2025, despite the show ending years ago. Let that sink in. A show that ended is growing in viewership. When audiences rewatch entire series voluntarily years after release, generating billions of views each year, you're not just making content, you're creating cultural touchstones that compound in value over time. This creates a self-reinforcing growth cycle that Hollywood content simply cannot match. Hollywood makes a movie, people watch it, people move on. Anime makes a show, people watch it, people rewatch it, people create art about it, people discuss it daily, people bring friends into it, the cycle never stops. Sony understood this when they made their move. Sony's $1.175 billion acquisition of Crunchyroll in 2021 was the move that changed everything. But the real genius was what they did after that acquisition. They merged Crunchyroll with Funimation, creating vertical integration across the entire value chain. Sony now controls production through Aniplex, streaming distribution through Crunchyroll, theatrical distribution through Sony Pictures Releasing, and merchandise licensing through partnerships. End-to-end control. This allows them to maximize revenue across every single window: theatrical, streaming, home video, merchandise, creating a self-reinforcing ecosystem that Hollywood studios literally cannot replicate. Hollywood can't control the entire pipeline. Sony can. Sony does. The anime merchandise market is valued at $27.5 billion in 2024 and is projected to reach $46.8 billion by 2030. That's the market for figurines, keychains, clothing, posters, physical products based on anime characters. A single character figure generates more profit for producers than entire seasons of streaming would generate. While Hollywood fights over streaming exclusivity and advertising revenue, anime is generating more revenue from merchandise than from films and shows combined. It's a completely different revenue model. So where does this go from here? There are 3 scenarios playing out, and I think one of them is already locked in. Best case scenario, anime's economic efficiency forces Hollywood to adapt. Studios start making $30 to $50 million budget films instead of $300 million spectacles. Creative risk-taking returns because lower budgets enable experimentation. Audiences get diverse original content instead of endless sequels, and Hollywood survives by becoming leaner, smarter, and hungrier for actual stories instead of franchise extensions. Base scenario. The market splits into 2 tiers. You get $200 million franchise spectacles and $2 million indie films, with nothing in between. Anime completely dominates the mid-budget theatrical space that Hollywood abandons. Streaming wars collapse as studios chase profits instead of subscriber growth. Mid-tier creators get squeezed out while mega franchises dominate everything else. The middle class of filmmaking disappears entirely. Worst case scenario. Japan and Silicon Valley completely take over entertainment. Algorithms make every creative decision at both anime studios and Hollywood. Antitrust regulators eventually wake up and break everything apart in a decade-long legal war. By the time the dust settles, the traditional entertainment industry as we know it has been destroyed and rebuilt in a completely different image. I think we're already locked into late-stage base case, heading towards worst case. The decisions have been made. The box office shifts have already happened. Hollywood can't course correct without admitting their entire economic model is broken, and that admission would require them to fire most executives and start over. That's not going to happen. Here's what the market data confirms. The U.S. anime market is projected to grow from $10.3 billion in 2024 to $20.5 billion by 2032. That's nearly doubling in size in just 8 years. The global anime industry will grow from $31.9 billion to $64.4 billion. These aren't optimistic estimates. These are conservative projections based on current trajectory. These are analysts being cautious. With Gen Z and millennials dominating media consumption for the next 30 years, anime's advantage only compounds. Every year that passes, anime gets stronger. Every year that passes, Hollywood gets weaker. Hollywood faces a choice. They can adapt by embracing lower budgets, authentic storytelling, and genuine community engagement. They can learn from anime and rebuild their business model around profitability instead of spectacle. Or they can continue producing $300 million blockbusters for increasingly apathetic audiences, while anime captures every young viewer, every streaming subscription, and every piece of merchandise revenue in sight. The math doesn't favor adaptation. The incentives don't favor change. So Hollywood will keep doing what it's doing, and anime will keep winning. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think Hollywood can adapt to anime's economic model, or is this shift permanent? Because here's what I believe. Anime didn't beat Hollywood by making better movies. That's not even the story. Anime beat Hollywood by making it economically impossible for Hollywood to compete. The math is just better. The model is just superior. Hollywood can't win this war because it's not playing by the same rules. Share this video with someone who still believes Hollywood can adapt. Let them see the math for themselves. Let them understand why this shift is permanent. Here's the thing though. While anime proves that lower budgets and authentic storytelling still work, Silicon Valley is betting the exact opposite. Tech billionaires are buying Hollywood studios right now and replacing directors with algorithms, treating cinema like data points instead of art. I just broke down how big tech is quietly buying Hollywood piece by piece. Oracle bought Paramount, Amazon owns James Bond, Apple is planning their next move. While anime shows what happens when you prioritize storytelling and community over metrics, big tech shows what happens when you prioritize pure data and algorithms over everything else. Watch that video right now, because together, these two trends show you exactly where entertainment is heading and why the next decade will decide what cinema actually is and what it means to tell stories.